What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Influence. Today we have Zack, the main man Goytowski, with us. Zack, how you doing today, man?
Good. A little sleep deprived, but I'm doing good.
A little sleep deprived. Tell us a little bit about why you're sleep deprived, Zack.
Oh, new dad life. Just up late at night, feeding the little girl. It's honestly the greatest blessing of my life, man. It's so awesome.
Awesome. How old's your daughter now?
4 months. Yeah, 4 months old.
Awesome.
Yeah. Scott, you're used to the dad life as well. You've got 2 kids.
Yeah.
Is this what it was like when it all started?
Yeah, I mean, it's stages and phases, and it's interesting. I feel very far removed from all things baby at the moment, but I was just having that conversation how like now it's all soccer games and gymnastics and school pickups and drop-offs. But yeah, it's 4 months is you're kind of coming out of it a little bit, but still in the thick of it. And
yeah. Well,
I don't know how
we
to
came out of it, and then now we're back. So we're kind of going through a sleep regression where the sleep cycle has changed, and but it's awesome. Her sleep cycle is really unpredictable right now. It's like random.
Wow. Okay. Well, Zack, we'll get deeper into talking a bit about your newborn, but I wanted to just start with you. There might be some people out there, I'd be shocked, but there might be some people out there who don't know who Zack Goytowski is. So Zack, man, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, man?
Yeah, I mean, so I am a Pacific Northwest lawyer. I practice, right now, primarily personal injury is where I'm working, but most of my history as a lawyer has been focused on criminal defense and litigation. I moved to Seattle about 2 years and 7 months ago, something like that. It's February, right? And then I met Kwame here on the Netflix show Love is Blind, where we both fell in love with our wives, and now we're married, and I'm living out life with the love of my life, and just taking it one day at a time.
How I'm curious with the law practice, because a lot of people they jump into an influencer life or they go down a certain path, and it feels like for most, like your career and your primary kind of way that you made money or your identity shifted. And I'm curious for you as a lawyer with your practice, how has that changed? How is life different? Is it the same? Is it just, I feel like, especially in criminal defense, after having that much notoriety, it feels like it would feel different. Yeah.
And that was, one of the motivations with the shift into personal injury litigation. But the core of it's the same. I used to practice in a small town. Everybody knew everybody. And so, I don't think it's, when people just happen to know you who you've never met, it's not that big of a deal. I don't think, but sometimes there's some weird interactions. I actually had, this is wild. And I just recently started working with a new firm. I got this email about there being a deposition that had taken place. And I just thought it was a case that the other lawyer was handling, and that they just CC'd me on it. So I didn't think anything of it. And I got a call from them, and they were asking me about this deposition that had taken place in California. And I'm like, I'm not licensed to practice in California. I don't practice there. And they read it out, the transcript out to me, and it says the lawyer identifies himself as Zack Goytowski. And I'm like, what? First of all, I was not in California. It didn't take place in this deposition. And there's definitely, I'm pretty sure I'm the only Zack Goytowski on the planet currently. So I'm like, what is going on? Is there another lawyer? Do we have a suit situation here? Is there a Mike out there who is pretending to be me? They had my all my information down. I was like, what is going on? So the company that was working with the stenographer, they actually went and looked, and apparently the person did not identify themselves as me. They just happened to be Zack with a long last name that started with a G. And I guess the court reporter who was writing it down had watched Love Is Blind and was thinking about me when they wrote it down, and they wrote it with Zack Goytowski.
Oh man, that's a great. It's like the odds of that happening are so slim that it's actually kind of crazy that it actually happened. But obviously, things have changed significantly since Love Is Blind, and you have a bit more notoriety now, and occasionally stenographers write your name down instead of somebody else's. When we got out of this, you started out. We started out with the same agency, and I remember getting into this idea of content creation, and it's like what it's all about. And one thing that really struck me was how in depth you were with every single deal that you got in terms of like understanding and analyzing the contracts, because you really, really wanted to know what was going on, and yeah, like I'd love to kind of just dive in a little bit deeper on how you started looking at content creation from a, like, I want to make sure that I'm safe in everything that I do aspect of it, because you were so thorough with these contracts.
You got to feel comfortable just walking away. And, not everybody's in that position, right? Some people are in a position where they really need the money. And so it's a really hard decision for them. But if you have the ability, man, I'm just saying, I don't think I've ever looked back at a time I said no to a brand and I was like, man, I wish I had, you know what I mean? Like every time I've said no, and I've had some ones where it was a pretty firm no, where there were brands that were like, hey, this is I won't go into like the money amount, but it was a large amount of money. And, you have someone in the middle who is trying to push us on boundaries that we had already set, specifically like, we've told every brand our daughter is not involved in any brand deal at all. Like we've gotten kickback after deals that were made before she was even born. And I said, no, we're walking away. Like, no, there's no deal happening here. And it was a big amount of money. And I just said, look, they want to pull out here after we've already kind of done this. That's fine. But no is a no. And this is not negotiable. And I just think you got to set your boundaries. You got to set your expectations and just stay firm to them. You're never going to regret that. You're always going to be in the long run. You will always be proud that you did that. And I think that's so important, because it's just like, it's easy to get caught up in fear and forget about what really matters.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think we've all been in positions where we didn't really have as much of an option to say no. I think if you really work hard and you can position yourself in a place where you can push back and really highlight the options that you have and like present the value of who you are, it really helps you to maintain like your personality, maintain who you are as a creator, as a human being, like maintain that dignity. I think it's really important. So I think it all comes back to just being yourself and presenting yourself and putting your best foot forward and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. And I can't betray that for a few dollars. I know I talked to some creators in different scenarios. And at the end of the day, I've had these moments myself as a creator where you get a contract, it's a certain amount of money and you may not exactly agree with everything that you have to do, but you're just like, you know what? it's enough that I'm just like, whatever, like I'll get it done, get this content out and move on, but I've talked to some creators who are like, hey, I had maybe 1 million followers and I knew I was about to do this thing that was going to lose me followers. And I posted this thing and I lost like 100,000 followers, right? I got my 60K, 70K out of it, which, at that degree, it's definitely such a big lump sum, such a sizable amount that it's hard for someone to turn down. But if you are in a position to be able to turn those down, on the flip side, I've had someone who was a creator who got an offer as a contract. They, I think, had about 2 million followers. The initial contract was with a brand that they didn't really gel with, and it was for about 50K. They were like, hey, like, this is what I would need for it to work out. And they went back and forth and they eventually turned it down. And then about 6 months later, a brand that they really, really gelled with came back, which if they had picked the first brand, the exclusivity would have actually made them unable to work with any other brand within that same industry. The brand that they actually liked more came back and offered them about 200K for a 1-year partnership, which, like, one, the money is insane, but also two, you're getting to actually align with a brand that you gel with, something that fits your persona, something that fits your brand, who you are as a creator. And it all came because you stayed true to yourself. And so, I don't know, long story short, I feel like it all works itself out full circle.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I would tell people is don't be afraid to say no. And not even just no in like the context of like a brand, but like during, right? Because what I've seen is sometimes you'll work with people and they'll want you to do something. They'll want more, or something that doesn't really align with your identity or how your specific artistic presence. You can probably get a little bit too over the top with that, depending on your personality. But I think if it's core to like your personality, if they want you to do something different than you feel like is consistent with your identity, I just say no, and like walk away. And I'll tell you, the power of walking away is so huge, because there's a lot of bluffing and bolstering, and there's a lot of times the people that you're interacting with aren't actually the brands, right? They're usually it's an intermediary, right? And they're going to try to push you to get, the what they think in their mind is best for the brand, but the brand might not even really care. And they really don't want to go back to the brand and say, hey, I actually lost you. I know we were in the middle of this. They got to explain why this person dropped out in the middle of the deal. Because they were pushing them to do something that they had never agreed to already. Right. And so I think there's just so much power in saying no and setting your boundaries and just being like, hey, no, I'm not, but being creative problem solvers, I think, is another thing that people often miss, in conflict and negotiations. People get fixed and looking at a negotiation as a zero-sum game rather than identifying interests. And if you get fixated on a single variable, that's one recommendation. And I've taken this since it's funny because I'm a huge believer in interest-based negotiations and negotiating in packages. It's something I used to negotiate competitively when I was in law school. So I competed for the ABA mock trial or mock negotiation. I did compete in the mock trial team too, but the mock negotiations. And one of the big skills that I developed from that was negotiating in packages, because when people get fixated on variables and they're like, okay, it's this much money or this much money, it turns it into a zero-sum game. It's like I win, you lose. But when we create different knobs for negotiations where we say, okay, look, we can provide at this value, but these are variables we're going to need to alter. So would you like me to do this with this quality of production? Would you like me to do this with this long of a video? Would you like me to get a formal editor? Would you like, you start giving options, and now we can start moving things around because they may be fixed, right? Monetarily, they can't really budge on money, but there's other variables and ways that they can offer you value and you can offer them value, and being able to create value and identify things that are valuable, it always enhances a negotiation.
I love that. We talk about all the time, like the non-monetary gives, and there's like so many different aspects, and it is interesting as a business to be, or a creator to be negotiating back and forth. And I think there are so many different variables in which you can concede a term. You can concede, the way certain clauses are going to handle liability or payment terms or frequency, or there's just so many different angles to deals that I think a little bit of creativity and understanding what's motivating different individuals based on their needs. So a creator who needs the money is going to be motivated in a certain way. The brand who has to get this campaign out because they have a deadline, or there's they care more about speed than total volume, then give them speed for cost versus giving them more volume, whatever it might be. So it's interesting to see those variables. It's funny talking about morals the whole time we're going through that. It's interesting in our work as, running influencer marketing campaigns and selling our platform. I think about once a month I get pinged and it's, hey, when I used to work at blah, blah, blah agency, we ran all of influencer for Obama's campaign, or we run all of influencer for Biden's campaign. And, we start to walk through, tell me more about what happened there. And they'll be like, yeah, they have like a $20-30 million budget for influencer. And you're like, that sounds pretty nice. But then at the same time, you're going to alienate half the country. You're going to alienate half your potential brands. You're making a statement without making a statement. And it is hard to make a principled decision when you're staring in the face of hitting all of your goals for the year. And it is really interesting. And so we've had to make these very principle-based stances on certain types of business, politics being a major one, where we're going to be just disengage altogether. And we're not going to pick sides because of the ramifications, the consequences, and not wanting to, I think there's so many consequences because if our employees feel a particular way, or like, what if you have a highly democratic campaign specialist who now is trying to think of really great campaign ideas for the Trump campaign? It's just like, it's a very interesting dynamic that creates so much conflict.
Yeah, it's almost something that I think politics are one of those things that you probably need to specialize in, right? Like it would be something that that makes sense for sure. And yeah, I definitely can understand where you're coming from with that.
But yeah, it's interesting. I think whether you're a creator, whether you're a business, you have to make those trade-off decisions constantly.
Yeah. One of the last things I wanted to kind of say with that conversation that we were having is, I think another thing to remember is the power of reciprocity. And I think it's really easy for people to get caught up in like, what's someone giving me? Like, oh, I'm not going to give this value because no one's giving me. I think, you should just try to give as much value to the people in your life, or the things that matter to you. Like focus on giving without getting something in return, and it'll come back. Sometimes it won't, but it all kind of tends to work out. And I think, like in the context of like the space that we're in, if there's a product or a something that you use in your life naturally, and you think it's valuable, just share it. Just like share it, like share that with people. One thing that I'm actually, like, you wouldn't know this because I don't really, I post about it in my stories, but I don't really post any of it onto like my grid or anything. But I am obsessive about health and fitness and like what goes in, like, but in a very unique way. I think that's maybe different than some people, because even though I obsess over the nuance of what I put in my body, what nutrients I need at certain timing windows, things like that, I take a very moderate approach to exercise and fitness. which is I try to maximize for happiness. And I think people get so fixated on like, they're like, oh my God, my workout, I got to have the best workout or I'm not going to do it. And people gravitate towards this grind mentality. But I swear, like I work out like usually 10 minutes a day. Like that's like 10 minutes a day, but I do it almost every day. Like, and sometimes it's even shorter. Like my rule is I do 1 minute of air squats after I get out of the shower. I kid you not. That's like that's my one thing. That's it. And for like 1 minute of working out a day, I feel like, I'm definitely not like, I'm not like Kwame over here. But I'm happy with the middle ground, but I do talk, I share about that philosophy, with people. And I share about, while I may not be like the ultimate fitness guy, I'm not trying to be like, I'm a dad, right? I just want to make sure I'm healthy and I'm happy and I'm going to live a long life. And so I share a lot about like the supplements that I take and the things that I use in my daily life. And some of these brands wouldn't really be interested in me, cause I'm not like, I'm not like a chiseled, Greek statue like Kwame over here. But
these are gonna make for great social clips, Zach.
Yeah, Kwame's like, that's going in. That right there is going in.
I'd love to just lighten up and ask, like, what has been some of your favorite parts about becoming a creator?
Yeah, I think this is probably like the thing that I would like articulate, like the most important thing that I'd like hope people would hear if they have a platform and a space, is to forget about the money side of it. Like, just like ask yourself, what is it that you want the world to hear, right? What is it you want to share with the world? What really matters to you? And try to focus on that with your content. Whether you're making humorous videos or you're just sharing your daily life, like what is it you think the world really needs to hear? Like, what really matters to you? We kind of talked about like the hard decisions about like, what do you say and what do you not say? What brands do you work with? What fields? But I mean, ultimately, like, what is it that really matters to you? And share that with people. So for me, I would say, when all of this happened, like when we went on Love is Blind and we did all that, like the number one thing in my head that I realized is like, no one's going to be listening to me more than in this moment. Right. Like, when we were at the reunion, like I knew like, what is it that I want the world to hear? And truthfully, like the thing that I really want people to hear is the power of love, the power of forgiveness and grace, and to try to have a little bit more understanding for people that are different than you, or people who have hurt you, or people who've made mistakes, and that all life can be redeemed. And I think like if you go to my profile, you'll see like that has been on my grid since the beginning. Like I actually had someone tell me that I should take down the story of my mother that's on the top of my grid, because brands look at the beginning of your grid and they'll decide like, okay, this is someone who's in shoes, this is someone who does health and fitness. So they brands base their decisions based on what's on your front row. Like what is it that you're exposing people to? And, I just told them I don't care. like I genuinely don't care, about that side, because for me, the question is like, and I still, I'd say like, I have people messaging me every day, like based on the story of my mother and how that has affected them and how they relate to that and connect to that. And I don't know if we can all just make the world just a little bit better place by being just a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more caring, a little bit more forgiving. It'll become a better world for everyone, including our children. Just keep asking yourself, like, what is it I want my legacy to be? Like, what is it that I want to leave for my children? How do I want to impact the world? And I think if you focus on that first, everything else will work out.
I think it's a good point. I think, there's so many ways to connect with people and to provide people with positivity, with entertainment. And it is interesting, like understanding, it's interesting, the sneaker example, because a lot of people find joy in learning and finding community and building relationships with other people around this passion that they have. And so I think that, it's really interesting because I think we take a look at a lot of creators and like, oh, they're just a blah, blah, blah creator. But I think when you unpack the really, really great creators and the ones that have large followings, so this is something we talked with a lot of folks about. They find a way to transcend whatever that simple topic is and ultimately build community, connect with individuals. And there's some type of other, speaking of parenting, I talk to my wife a lot about her feed and like what she sees. And it's really interesting because there's this entire kind of niche of content creation on the internet around the struggles of parenting and the challenges of parenting. And the pieces of content, it's like someone out there hears me, someone feels my struggle, someone understands that I've been up, we're going through sleep regression, I got my dog barking and my kid, I can't get my camera. Like, it's just like, they understand my life. And those content pieces, like, they bridge a divide between people and they make you, often they're like, hey, I'm not alone in this, which is really interesting. And I'm not, it doesn't all have to be that way. And some content just is simply there to entertain or whatever. But I do think that is one of the really powerful things about social media, is that no matter kind of what walk of life, what stage you're in, what you're struggling with, there is someone out there who's gone through it, is going through it, sees you, feels you, hears you, understands your perspective. And it's interesting too. I've had a discussion with a lot of dads. No matter how good of a dad you are, and I know obviously the kind of character that you have and the amount of thoughtfulness that you put into being a dad, you will never fully understand what it means to be a mother. And that's okay. And when Bliss turns to you and you go, and I had such a hard night and it was so tough and my body is destroyed, my identity has changed. And you go, I know, babe. And she's like, you will never know. And that's okay. But I think there are people on the internet creating content who do know, who have faced those demons, who have experienced that night, who have had complete identity crisis about, taking a step back from what they define themselves as to become a mom. And it's very, very interesting. And that space of the internet, that space of social, I think people want to go and see products based on recommendations from people who have that really deep, deep understanding. They want to hear what it's like 5 months from now. So I have hope. It's 2 years from now. So I have hope. And so I feel like, am I making these decisions for my 4-month-old that are going to change and affect her life forever? Or is it going to be okay? Am I working too much? Am I not feeding her the right things or enough? And you're health conscious. You're like, should she be having these nutrients now? And I think we get really, really hung up on that. And there is a community. There's this resonance in community that's built. So I love what you said. Start not to make it all about child and parental struggles and whatnot. But I do think, to your point, giving back can simply be sharing your story and providing someone with hope, with a point of view, a perspective that no one else can provide because they haven't walked that walk yet.
I think that is the most important thing to remember. Actually, is like, your story is one of the most powerful ways that you can help people. And I really believe this, that there is someone, I think, like, when we talk about mental health and like the struggle of life and how hard life can get, I think one of the things where people really get dark is they feel like they're valueless. They feel like that no one needs them. And I think that can put people into a really dark spiral. And I think the thing to always remember is that there's someone out there that only you can uniquely touch, that they have lived, like, you may not be the greatest orator, right? You may not have achieved a great amount of things. You might just be literally the most average or sub-average person, right? But there's someone in your life who connects with you and has experienced those things, or has a relationship with you because of circumstance that only you can uniquely affect. And I really believe that. I think every person has an unmeasurable amount of value that they can provide to another. And we get so caught up in comparing ourselves to other people that we forget that, like, to my daughter, her mom and me are the most important people in the world, right? We might not be that to anybody else, but to her we are. And I think just realizing that you uniquely have value, I think it's just really important. Something to remind people that their story is powerful. There's people who you can connect with and help with your story.
It's interesting. And I coming back to kind of the, influencer marketing side of things, I think when people ask me, why is this such a powerful way of communicating and storytelling for brands and building community and getting things out there, I think it is because no brand, no celebrity, mostly, is not going to create that deep of a resonance and that deep of a connection where I would ever care as much as I care about, the input of that person that I deeply resonate with. And you can take it in a really negative way where it's like, okay, you're going to co-opt this person because of their shared life experience, whatever. I think creator marketing and influencer marketing done right is allowing people to explore really, really great products, services that help them and make their lives genuinely better. And people who they trust, who have this deep resonance with them, helping them discover those products. There is something magical in that. And there's a whole lot of ways to go wrong with it. But when you nail it, and it's like, I resonate so deeply with this creator, with their story, with everything that they stand for, and then they recommend something to me that's going to make my life better, and then it does, it's like the whole world is working in sync and like shit's going how it's supposed to go. And I love that. And I think those are the kind of moments, those are the better experiences that I hope we have as a consequence of social media. We're not going to get it right, but I think to the extent that we as creators, marketers, people in this trade can help facilitate that really great exchange of value, I think it's going to be a good outcome.
Yeah, I think that's then that's kind of why I was talking about, like, saying no. Because when it's done right, you're really creating win-win situations, right? Because when there's something that, like, you really believe in, a product that you really believe in, that you think can bring joy or improve someone's life, and you're sharing that, it's value. I know there's some podcasts that I listen to where I want to hear the ads. I want to hear the ads because the ads that are on there are things that I really have consistently found to add value to my life. Like the good podcasts out there that are niched to the things that I'm interested in. I'm like, oh, whoa. And I'll type it in or take a screenshot because that's actually something that I think would add value. A funny one. I know we're short on time. That it's not even related to a brand. Somehow, Facebook targeted me for One Wheel advertisements. Okay, and I don't know if you know what One Wheel is.
I get all the same ads. Yeah, it's.
Oh my god, dude, I love it. So I didn't even know what it was. I saw at first, I saw 5 ads. Oh, that looks interesting. It's just this wheel on the dirt, and then eventually I clicked on it. I was like, this looks pretty cool. And I remember I spent I'm like a very slow purchaser. I'm like the worst person you'd ever want to sell something to, because I want to analyze every decision. I want to like it's really beneficial as like a lawyer. You know, it's an attribute that you want from your lawyer. You want the slow decision making with analyzing, trying to make sure, sitting, ruminating on it, thinking back, going back. It's not always like the most favorable when you need to like order some food. But long story short, man, one wheel. I'm an addict to riding one wheels, man. At one point it was like my main transportation when I used to live in my old town that I used to live in. I would like ride to my office with my briefcase on my one wheel and a suit, a big old smile on my face. And like, it was the best ad I've ever gotten. I didn't even know about it if it wasn't for an advertisement. And now I'm hooked. I got 2 of them. Kwame, you still haven't gone one wheeling with me. We gotta go one wheeling. Well,
it's on the to-do list. Yes. It's on the to-do list. Oh man. You know what? That's a funny spot to stop us at. One wheeling as the overarching message of the conversation. But no, I think there have been some really powerful things said. And I think the main message that I'm getting out of this conversation is that we've all been given an opportunity to amplify our voices, especially those with a large audience or a large community. And I think it is our responsibility to tune into that and to really show people the experiences that we are going through, in hopes that some people are going through those experiences as well. And we can help be a North Star for them, and help them, maybe get to a place of reassurance and realization that there is hope and there is light ahead of them. So hopefully somebody gets to listen to this and see some light at the end of the tunnel. But with that being said, we appreciate everyone so much for tuning in to Beyond Influence today. Thank you, Zack, for being here.
Kwame, it's a pleasure.
For sure. And with that being said, we will see y'all next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you, Kwame. See you, Scott.
See ya.
Bye.